Ladies and gentlemen, we got a new person on the call today. I'm just jacked up about it. I've been wanting him on the call, and I thought about it yesterday. I got busy, and I called him yesterday afternoon. I said, listen, I got to get you on it to tell your story. I said, I got you to tell your story. And the reason why I want to tell this story, because it relates to our industry. Listen up, our industry, the things you have to do to become successful in life, you can apply it to any part of life. This young man played 1 year in 1987 for the Los Angeles Rams. And he's just quiet. He's peaceful. When I go to Fresno, he'll drive all the way from LA to meet me in Fresno. And he'll come up to Fresno. He kind of even started a little threat up there in Fresno that he was going to take over. And then that just gets me going because I love challenges. And then he's talking about getting a place up there in Fresno. I love challenges. And last time I came to Fresno, he came up again. I said, oh, here we go. Here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to introduce one of our own regional directors, and I want him to tell his story, how he played professional football for the Los Angeles Rams in 1987 for a year, and how he contributes to the network marketing. So, can we give a warm welcome to none other than Mr. Greg Williamson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. I'm telling you what,
sir.
I am so grateful. I am so grateful that I get the opportunity to speak this morning, this afternoon, if you're on the East Coast. When Mr. Thomas gave me that call yesterday, I mean, I was beside myself. I couldn't sleep. I was so excited this morning. I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning, went out and ran my dogs. I was just so excited because I really believe that my story today is going to be able to touch somebody. Maybe people on this call, wasn't able to play professional football like I got a chance to play, but my story is going to resonate with everybody that's on this call. And this is my background. Is that I went to Fresno State University where I played collegiate football there, graduated with a degree in education. I got a chance to play professional football with the LA Rams for a short period of time. I worked with the federal government, did that for 25 years. I'm now retired. And I owned and operated a sports merchandise store, which I did for 8 years. And it was really successful. But the title of my story today is Seeing the Finish Line at the Starting Gate. So you want to, you want to see the finish line at the starting gate. And so, the story of how I got to the professional football ranks was not easy. Now, I'm going to give you my story back when I was a child. Grew up in Long Beach, California. And we used to go out and go play, I used to always tell people, hey, one day that you're going to see me playing professional sports. Nobody believed me, and the reason why, because I was always the smallest kid, on the block. I was the smallest kid playing. We used to go out and play tackle football on the grass as a kid. I was always the smallest one, but I always say, hey, look, one day that you're going to see me on Sundays. You're going to see me on Saturdays and Sundays. No one believed it. I used to say it all the time. See, this is what happened, is that God gave me a dream at a young age, at 8 years old. And he showed me that one day that you're going to be playing professional football. And, I would say it to my mom, my dad. People didn't believe it because I was so small. Matter of fact, my senior year in high school, I was 140 pounds soaking wet. So how many college scouts do you think was knocking on my door after I got done playing high school football? Zero. No one. No one. My friend said, hey, look, Greg, why don't you just join me and we just go ahead and go into the Marines together? I said, hey, no, look, I know that's your dream, and I respect that, but that's not mine. I said, mine is to one day see you're going to see me on Sundays. And so I went to a junior college because that's the only place I can go. And the coach told me, he said, hey, look, Greg, this is what's going to happen. He said, when you get there, um, we're gonna start you right away. You're gonna be the guy. And I believed it. So that's why I went to that school. And when I got there, it was 8 different guys at my position. And I was eighth string. I was at the end. I could have quit. I could have said, you know what? He lied to me. I'm done. I'm going to quit. But I said, you know what? I got a dream, and that dream is to one day, go to a 4 year. 4-year university, played football there, and then played in the pros. And I just saw it. And over time, I went from 8th string, 7th string, all the way up to the 1st string. And I was getting ready to start that first game, and I broke my arm. Now I could have quit. I could have just said, you know what, maybe this dream is not for me. Maybe this is not going to work for me. And but no, I came back the next year, and I started, and it got to the point where every college in the nation was knocking on my door to ask me to come to their school and play for their school. And it kind of overwhelmed my mom because I mean these scouts were coming into my house. Now remember, I was really small when I was younger, but I mean, when I was a kid, but I started to kind of grow into my body, started to, kind of grow. And so, schools were coming in, they were knocking on the doors. And, I kind of can pick and choose where I wanted to go. And right before I was getting ready to choose a school, I tore up my knee to the point where they told me I would never be able to walk, never be able to run, whatever. And they said, we have something that's called arthroscopic surgery, but we don't know how it's going to work. So back then, that was something that was brand new. And I said, let me go ahead and do that. And I did that. And so all the other big schools kind of went away, but the school that stayed around was Fresno State University. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go there and I'm going to star. And I didn't have a red shirt year or a year to kind of get myself together. So I had to play on a knee that wasn't 100%. But I wound up being one of the top people by my senior year to go pro. And I remember getting that phone call from the Los Angeles Rams, and that's a team that I always that was my team when I was a kid. That I used to dream it over and over and over. And when they called me and said, "Look, Greg, we want you to come and play for us," I was just so beside myself. I called my dad and said, "Hey, look, Dad, I'm coming home. They want me to play for the home team." So I went there, and I got a chance to the star and got an interception. Um, and this is this is one of the pictures of me with the LA Rams. And this was against a guy who I used to really idolize as a kid. His name is Kevin House. He played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when I was a kid, but by the time I got to the pros, he was kind of older. And um, I used to sit next to some of these players, and I'm like, man, I remember watching you on TV, and now I'm sitting right next to you in a locker. I'm talking to you, and none of this would have never happened if I didn't believe in myself. See, this is what I want to to get with everybody today is when God puts something in your heart. Now, everybody on here, when you saw ACN for the first time, something resonated with you, and it said, "Hey, you know what? You can do this." And then, we said, you know what? I'm going to do this. Now, some people, they get started in ACN, and what happens is, life starts to happen. And then they start to fall away because, you know, um, their dream wasn't strong enough. They didn't believe in what was put into them when they first saw this. And so what you got to do is when, with that dream that you had when you first signed that rep agreement, say, hey, look, I want to get started in this. Guard your decision. Guard it. Life is going to happen. Yeah, just like in the case of me with the NFL, um, I broke my arm. I messed up my knee. All these things that happened to me. Now, I only played 1 year in the NFL, and the reason being because of my knee was so bad. Um, I wasn't able to do the things I used to do. And I remember going to the Patriots and the Giants, and I was the best player there, but I could not pass a physical, and so that's why I only played 1 year because of my knee. So but I asked God. I said, why? Why did you get me there and I only got a chance to play 1 year? He said, you know what? It wasn't for you. It was the story. So this is my story that I get a chance to tell all you guys is, guard your decision. Go through life. It's going to go through the ups and downs, but before you know it, you'll be standing on that stage telling your story, how you got to where you are. Um, Now, you know, how I got into to ACN is I had a sports merchandise store, love sports. I thought I was going to open up a bunch of sports merchandise stores. And matter of fact, I the store that I owned, it was nice. It had artificial grass, it had flat screen TVs, and where kids can come and play video games. And I was planning on opening up a whole bunch of stores, and I was well known in my area. But the thing about it is, Amazon came around and people weren't coming into the store anymore. And I remember getting on my knees and literally praying for something. I said, you know what, Lord, I just retired from my job. I do not want to go back into another job. I always wanted to be in business. And my friend called me up and he said, Greg, you got to see what we're doing. You got to see this. And he said, just meet the guy that I'm working with. And he brought Mr. Dean Terali into my store, and I'm telling you this is I had my guards up. I was like, no, no, no. Whatever you try to bring to me, if the answer is no. But you know what? When God gives you something and you pray for something, sometimes you don't know how that gift's gonna come to you. And something was telling me, Greg, this is what you've been praying for. This is it. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to get started. I'm going to do this. And what really got my decision going is when I went to my first big event and I saw, people walking the stage as regional directors. And I said, man, one day that's going to be me. That's going to be me. And now this was the deal. We didn't have Zoom like this when I first got started. And so I live about 90 miles northeast of Los Angeles. And I remember getting in my car, driving 90 miles to one of our Thursday events. And this is what I saw. I saw people, walking the stage, getting promoted as a regional director. I saw, top leaders like Mr. Dean Terali and Mr. Efren Tejada and other leaders. And I said, man, I love the way how they maneuver. That's the way, I want to do this. And so what I did was I drove every Thursday and Saturday 90 miles 90 miles. Some days I had people in the car with me where I bring down with me, and some days I came by myself. And some days I would drive down the 210 freeway heading to that event with tears in my eyes because I saw myself over and over and over as a ETL or ETT, I think that was the position back then. And I saw myself walking the stage as a regional director over and over, shaking the co-founders' hands. And I would get so emotional over that, where tears would come down my eyes because I would see it over and over. The whole time I'm driving, I would have self-development going on, and I would be visualizing myself walking the stage as a regional director. And I didn't get to that position right away. It wasn't nothing fast. I went through some ups and downs. I went through some learning curves. Matter of fact, I was somebody who you probably would have thought would have never got to that position because I didn't want to speak to people. But something was driving me to go out and get in my car and drive to different places and go speak to people. Drive to Bakersfield. I had a team out there and just go speak to people and do the things that probably some people wouldn't do, but I did it because I can see myself become a regional director. And I remember the day when that happened, when that regional director position hit. And I kept going to the computer over and over and over. And it was saying ETL, ETL, ETL. And then about 11 o'clock that morning, I hit the computer again and it said RD. Back then it was team coordinator. And I'm going to tell you this, you would have thought I won the presidency. You would have thought I was the new president of the United States because that right there was the biggest deal. I'm getting emotional because it's almost like it was yesterday because I saw it when I signed the rev agreement. I saw it. I saw myself hitting that position well before it had ever happened. So this is my thing to you is um, as you're signing that rep agreement, as you sign the rep agreement, as you tell yourself, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to get 100 customer points. I'm going to get 200 customer points. You got to see that thing through. You got to go all the way with it, because there're going to be some dark times. There's going to be some times where that other voice in your head is going to tell you that it's not going to work. You're gonna have some times where things are not going to work out the way you thought this person was going to come in to be the star in your business, and then they went ghost. But the thing about it is, that's all part of the journey. That's all part of you getting to where you want to go. Because when you get to where you want to go in this business and in life, when you look back, you're going to tell yourself every situation was worth it. Me hurting my knee, me breaking my arm, all those things happen was worth it. It was worth it to me, because it all shaped me to who I am today. And so, um, this is my thing: is you know, once you make a decision, take a fortress and guard that decision. Because what's going to happen as soon as you make that decision, life's going to happen. The evil one's going to come around and try to steal, kill, and destroy your decision, and tell you you can't do it. You're not fast enough. You don't talk well enough. All these things that come into your head to tell you that the things that you can't do. But if it's put in your heart, then that's what you guard. You guard it, and you guard it all the way to the end, to the top. So yeah, Mr. Thomas, I mean, that's how I got to the NFL, was true faith. I believed in myself when no one else did, and and that is what propelled me to keep moving forward, uh, all the way through.